Muhammad Qasim, born 1995, Al-Saftawi Street. My grandmother and I were home alone. She was telling me stories about the days of our countries, funny stories and sad ones, but she never told me a complete story because she always had to go to the bathroom halfway through. My grandma spends half her time in the room and the other half in the bathroom. My parents came back at 10:30 at night and went to sleep straight away. I couldn't sleep. I was lying on my bed awake, writing my homework. Suddenly, I heard the noise of a distant explosion. I went to my parents' room and took the radio to hear the news. I woke my father up and told him, I heard the sound of a strong explosion. He said, be quiet and go to bed. It's just aimless shooting. Anyway, I went back to bed and the electricity was out. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion that shook my world. I pulled my blanket and covered my face, and something fell on me. I raised the blanket off me with all my strength, and it was the frame of the window that had fallen on me. The blanket was full of glass, and our entire house was full of black smoke. It was the day they hit the workers' union, right next to our house. But that's not the point. The point is the stupid things that happened in which I can't find an explanation for. First, the world was on fire and we all felt we would die. But my grandmother was looking for her false teeth. She was afraid that when she died, people would find out she had no teeth, like they don't know already. Second, the house was full of smoke, but my father lit a cigarette and smoked as if we needed more smoke. Third, my uncle called to make sure we were okay, and my father told him that we're all fine, thank God. But that all the windows of the house were broken except one. My uncle told him to break it, and my father did. And I don't know why I'm telling this story. All I know is that we're living in a cage, a prison, like an encaged bird who wants to come out, but he's besieged. Kids are dying in front of their mother's eyes. Hearts are crying for them and screaming in the loudest voice, but no one hears. No one's heart softens, and no one seems to care.
Mahmoud Abu Shaban, born 1996, Al Ramal. You're going to call me crazy, nuts, cuckoo. Go ahead. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me anymore. In truth, what's happening with me is not normal. I mean, losing trust in my friends is normal. Lots of people have lost trust in others. But what's driving me crazy is that I've lost my trust in shop windows and cars, in police stations and suspicious areas. In my personal philosophy, all of Gaza is a suspicious area. To make a long story short, everything that was hit in the war, I'm scared of going near today. I don't know how to walk down the street. I'd be walking on the right and get scared. Then I'd move to the left, but I'd be scared. So I'd go back to the right and stay in that whirlwind. Where am I supposed to walk? In the middle of the street? See, on the first day of the war, I was in my brother's shop that sells computers and mobile phones accessories. A metal fell on the floor and my brother told me to hang it up. Suddenly, while hanging it up, I heard the sound of rockets and the glass fell on me and injured me. I was scared. I wasn't scared for myself, but for my brother. He was also injured. He was worried about our family. He told me, go up to the house and make sure they're okay. I went up to the stairs and I wasn't scared. I made sure they were all right and they were all fine, thank God. I walked up to the street to find out where the explosion happened. We heard a lot of explosions. Gaza became like a black night because of the smoke, but still, I wasn't scared. I forgot to tell you that my brother had a cup of tea in the first explosion, which fell from his hand and broke. Do you think it was because of fear
Mahmoud Malawi, born 1995, Ashanti Camp. I want to write the most beautiful words about Gaza, but I can't. I can't not see the poverty, siege, and famine, especially when all Gaza City flooded into Al Arish and emptied it from all goods in 2 hours. I can't not see the deprivation in every house, fear, and the sickness. What do you want me to say about Gaza? From when I became aware of it, I was sad about everything inside it, especially the kids, and even the adults, youth, women, girls, animals, stones, and trees. Everything in it is crying. I'm looking for nice words to say, and I can't find it. The sea is the only thing that helps me dream. When I stand on the shore, I can imagine Cyprus, travel to Paris, fly to Rome, all while standing in the same spot. I go around the whole world, and in the end, I land on my bed in our house, in the middle of the refugee camp. I go back to the reality of Gaza, the dirty market, overflowing sewage, the carts, and what's on top of the carts, the suffocating smell, and the silent people who can't speak. When I look at the clock and it's 11:55, I start shaking, and my heart beats faster. I feel that the war started again. Not only the clock scares me, everything that flies does. Even the flies. I can't tell anyone about my fear, so they don't call me a wimp or a sissy. I'm most scared for my older brothers. When a fly lands on any of them, I feel like it's going to kill him. I start shouting and I run away from the place. That's why I'm now escaping outside the house all the time because of the many flies.
Mahmoud El Turk, born 1994, Al Jala Street. Before the war, I was a child, but after the war, I discovered I'm not a child anymore, and that Gaza, unlike all cities of the world, doesn't have children in it. When the war started, I was playing in the neighborhood, and I found all the neighbors running away. I asked, "What's going on?" They told me, the Israeli army told the neighbors that they will bomb their house. I went running home to tell my parents. In less than a minute, we ran away from the house. We took nothing except the gas cooker because it's more expensive than gold in Gaza. I felt then that I'd never go back home. We went to my grandfather's house. The next day, the Israeli intelligence called my grandfather's house and told them they would bomb it. We ran out and went to my other grandfather, the father of my mother. There were 5 other families there. All my aunts, my cousins, and I became good friends. We'd stay up all night and talk about the war. I was tired and scared and wanted to go home and sleep on my bed and pillow. 3 days later, they bombed our neighbor's house. After the bombing, all the inhabitants of the neighborhood returned to their houses, and I went back to my room. But I couldn't sleep anymore. I've been wanting to travel for a long time. I have an uncle in Canada who always sends me videotapes of him with his family in Canada's parks, sea, shops, and in the background of the pictures are Canadian girls. Like I need that. It's like he's taunting me. I started dreaming of Canada day and night. That's why I now like acting. I tell myself, it will work out with me and I'll become an actor and travel to Canada and become a Canadian, marry a Canadian, and have little Canadian children. What language do they speak in Canada? Never mind. I'll learn the Canadian, and anyway, I don't care. They won't know I'm an Arab in Canada since I'm so blonde and blue-eyed. Mahmoud Arfana, born 1995, Al-Saftawi Street. If you want to call me a coward, do so. Because after the war, I don't answer any kid who swears at me or even hits me. I'm just sad. I leave him and walk away. Before the war, I wasn't like that. The flying bird would all avoid me. Why did this happen to me? Because honestly, after I saw so many kids dying in the war, I started to feel that all of us are gonna die. It's just a bit delayed. I said to myself, kid, you're a lot bigger than that. I started to feel that I was 100 years old. The war ended on the ground, but it's still there in my head. I want to be like any child in this world. Not in the world, at least in Jerusalem. When I chat to my cousins who are living in Jerusalem on the net, I feel that they are living their childhood and they don't think like me at all. I'm scared to tell them what I'm thinking, so they don't think I'm weird. I pretend to be listening to them and I lie to them. They didn't live what we lived before. My family and that of my uncle and grandfather all went to live in my uncle Anand's place because it was far away from the war and it was a safe area. So we thought. The next day there was a bombing on the street next to my uncle's house and the wall behind the house collapsed. The third day, my uncle, at whose house we were staying, went to buy pho and falafel for breakfast. When he returned, he parked the car at the door of his house, and before he went down from the car, a rocket fell on him. The upper half of his body fell on the asphalt, and when the ambulance came, they took out the lower half from the car. The paramedics went and collected the upper half with a plastic bag, and they took it to the hospital. Everyone started wailing, screaming, and my mother started asking God to bring him back safe. I don't know, was she lying to herself or to us? Of course my uncle didn't come back, and he won't come back safe.
Mahmoud Najm, born 1994, as Sheikh Radwan. For the first time, the streets of Gaza were clean. There wasn't a paper or a cardboard. People were collecting the paper from the streets to use it for baking because the electricity was disconnected. My mom didn't want to bake, and she asked me to bring bread from the oven. The queue at the oven stretched from Gaza to the West Bank. People will line up for 8 hours to get to their turn and take half a pack of bread. In seconds, a Palestinian rocket launcher was erected in the area, and in less than 1 second, the Israeli planes started bombing it. People began running in all directions, and the ambulances came. People started falling dead. Others were injured. I was in shock. And people in the street started telling me, thank God, you're safe. Anyway, I went back home. I went back home without the loaf of bread. And my mom yelled at me. But till today, she doesn't know why I didn't bring the bread.
Eba Dawood, born 1995, The Harbor. When I was 5 years old, we went to Tiberias one day. It was a very beautiful city, like a paradise. As we were going home on the bus, someone called the driver and told him not to take the Jerusalem road because Sharon had entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Only then I realized that Tiberias is not ours. I'm in the Rimal School near the Ministry of Passports, which was the first hit by the war. All the ministry flew into the school. All the girls started crying except me. I was laughing. And till today, I don't know why I was laughing. When When I went home and turned the TV on, I saw all the buildings around our school destroyed, with corpses lying next to each other. I saw our school, but I didn't see myself on TV, and I thank God. I hope there won't come a day when I'm on TV, because we don't get anything from it except death. After the war, I started knowing what people are thinking even before they speak, and feeling from the look of their eyes what they want. I also started knowing things that I, or someone my age, should not know. I became braver and started knowing how to speak properly, and my trust in people grew. Turns out the war had benefits. Would anyone believe that? After the war, I'm stronger and go into the future with more confident steps.
Liam El Dieri, born 1997, is Sabra. What I love most in Gaza is Barcelona Park. I used to go there 3 times a week. I would spend the whole day on the swing, laughing and playing with my friends. But during the war, the occupation bulldozed it and destroyed it. I went to visit the place and started crying. I remembered where I used to play and where the wings were, and my laughter with my friends. I want to be a lawyer so I can defend the people that have been victimized. And you won't find more of them than in the empire of Gaza, because I feel that Gaza is 100 countries and 1.5 million presidents. The tanks got to our house at 5 in the morning. Mom started gathering things from the house, and everything turned upside down in a few seconds. Everyone started yelling and carrying what they could, and we went out running in the streets, not knowing where to go. My grandmother said, "You can only go to the schools." And all schools, our school is more beautiful than all schools. 100 of us used to sleep in one class. For the first night, I got into a fight with another girl about a quarter of a meter and was going to sleep in it. And I don't know how we slept, on top of each other, like a mountain of old, discarded, forgotten clothes. 3 days later, we went back to the house and the neighborhood. But a lot of things had changed. The neighborhood wasn't the same, and people weren't the same either. The biggest change in me is that I became a gossip. Honestly, I can't hold my tongue. Our theater trainer told me that this is normal in Gaza. All Gaza gossips about each other. But the difference between me and the people in Gaza is that they don't admit that they are gossiping. While I admit in my full mental capacities that I am a gossip, sometimes I find no one to gossip about, so I gossip about myself.
Yasmin Jarur, born 1996, Al Daraj. Our future in Gaza is obscure and unknown, like a calm volcano that can erupt at any second, as if we're on a boat without a captain in the midst of a raging sea. We go right and left, and no one knows where to be. I hear that in other countries, childhood is sacred, and children live their lives without problems and fear, but Gaza's children are forgotten and outside the picture. They're the ones who feel the injustice the most because society treats them like they're not kids. When it wants, it makes them adults, and when it wants, it returns them to being children. And most people deal with them like they're only bodies, not minds. When I see a child pedaling in the street or working in a shop, I imagine how the children of the world are playing, resting, and feeling safe. Honestly, my heart breaks for them, and sometimes I cry. Gaza has no tenderness and no childhood. A boy is born a man here, and a girl is born a bride. Dad, before the war, was a lot more tender with me. I wish he would take me in his arms like before, but God help him. He's probably worried too, because in the war, we lost 5 dunams of land in a second. The field that's 60 years old was hit by a rocket from the Israeli army, which burned all the oranges in it. My father, my brother, and myself could have also died by that rocket. Because we were close to the window, if Dad hadn't thrown me on the ground, all this shrapnel would have hit me. After the war, I visited Rafia crossing and saw the flags of Palestine and Egypt next to each other, yet separated by a wire. I felt the difference between the two flags, and that this wire is the border of the big prison that we live in. I felt how stupid and unjust is the world, and I felt like breaking all borders and ending the differences between races and religions so that everyone in the world would be brothers. My dream became to live in a safe country, even in a small village, in a distant island at the end of the world.
Yasmin Abu Amir, born 1996, Al Sujaiya. I want to be a specialist in the science of metaphysics, what is behind nature. You know why? Because I think that Gaza itself is behind nature. And I got so much from my presence here in Gaza that I'd like to transfer my skills to others. The Sujaiya camp is always the center of events. Each time the occupation wants to invade Gaza, they pass by our house. When the war began, people left their houses thinking that the Sujaiya would be hit. It's normal, in this case, to leave our house. Everyone was calling my dad to convince him to leave the house. My brothers from Algeria, my uncles from the States, my uncles from Ankara. The whole world was begging my dad, and he wouldn't budge, refusing to leave the Sujaiya. 3 days with my mom having packed the house stuff, and we're in suspended travel mode. We want to go to my sister's house because it's safer there. After we were exhausted from talking, he agreed and said, "You go and I'll follow." How can we go and leave him? My mom was smart. She left the bread at home. And you know how dear bread was in war? As soon as we got to my sister's house, she called him and said, "Salman, we forgot the bread, bring it for us." And Salman fell in the trap and brought the bread, and we wouldn't let him leave. The next morning, we woke up to the phosphorus bomb that fumed the street. We all started crying, our tears falling because of the phosphorus. The bomb was easier on us than Dad's stunting. The bomb was easier on us than Dad's stunting. He said, "I told you, let's stay home. It's better for us. There's no place like home." And on it went. What added fuel to the fire is that the mosque and the house next to my sister's house were destroyed in the bombing. And you can imagine what my dad did to us. He wanted to take us back home immediately. No sooner had he finished his words than we were told that the house next to ours in Sujaiya was bombed and the front of our house ripped off. Then, for the first time, all of us looked at Dad. We stayed at my sister's place. It became clear to us that wherever we were in Gaza, in the war, we were not safe. After the war, I started to always dress in a very clean and tidy way, so that if I die, I would die a nice death. But it would be the biggest problem if I was hit by a rocket because I'd become 100 pieces and I'd like to die in one piece. Wow, Gaza. And Gaza's dream. Our dream has become to die a good death, not live a good life.
Yasmin Katbeh, born 1996, as Sheikh Radwan. When the war started, my mom, my brothers and sisters and I were in Russia, which made me always worried about Dad. We wanted to leave Russia and return to Gaza among our family to live the events with them. As soon as the war ended and the crossings opened, we returned to Gaza. And from then till today, we've been hearing stories of the war. I couldn't sleep in Russia because of my worry about Dad. Before the war, when the mobile used to ring and it will be from Gaza, we'd be happy and race to answer it. But in the war, every time the mobile rang from Gaza, any number, whether we knew it or not, we'd say, "Dear God," and started looking at each other to see who will answer. After the war, a lot of things changed in me. I started seeing things differently. I began to like the city. Life became more beautiful, and so did I. My friends changed, and I made older and more mature ones. I became very outspoken and brave, even in front of Dad, and I could face anyone. Mom and I became friends. A lot of times we stay up at night and talk about everything. In the future, if I grow up and in Gaza, it's an achievement to grow up because death is standing at your doorstep. I want to be a children's caretaker and defend their fights because I feel that the children of Palestine are born as old people. A kid can be 6 years old and yet supporting a family.